Hey, Frank Figliuzzi, what do you assume about the role of surveillance in this case, in this story, and very possibly in the life and devices of one Rudolph Giuliani?
Well, as Barbara alluded to, you don't have a U.S. Attorney's Office going after the president's attorney and their former boss, Rudy Giuliani, head of the office, as you said, without them having solid predication to do so. And when I read the indictment on Rudy's two associates, I see a level of detail. I see quotes, attributions, for example, to the foreign national number one, times, places, filings that seem to indicate there might be court-authorized wiretaps in this case. And if that's the case, then it's possible that Rudy Giuliani was intercepted inadvertently, not that he was the target necessarily, but that he was picked up on electronic surveillance. If that's the case, he needs to be much more careful than he's been today. The statement that he made to Mike Schmidt in response to Mike's article, as Barbara said, that I wasn't working for the Ukrainians, I was working for Trump. That kind of thing is going to be held up against what they have on tape, if they have it, what they have from human sources. And as is usually the case when Rudy opens his mouth, he may have defended himself against a FARA charge today with Mike, but he certainly threw Trump under the bus by saying, I was working at the direction of the president of the United States. That's a problem.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.